So, most folks have no idea what we do in the winter. And we're going to take it back. Zoroastrian, the longest night of the year, is known as Yalda. Yalda. It's basically the night that Ahriman has free reign. This is the longest night of the year. And the tradition for the Zoroastrian folks is to stay up late into the night, feast, and read special poetry that drives the devil away. We've already had our feast of roast beef, roasted cow, wine, all those sinful things. And so I thought it would be a good night for us to read more stuff as well. I think the evocation of Ahriman starting would be a good idea. It's technically the devil's night anyway. And I do not have enough light. Alright, so we start out with, Rise up, thou father of us, for I will cause a conflict in the world, where the stress and injury of Ahriman and his archangels will arise. Rise up, thou father of us, for in conflict I will shed thus much vexation on the righteous man and the laboring ox, and that through my deeds life will not be wanted. I will destroy the living souls, I will vex the water, I will vex the plants, I will vex the fire of Ahriman, I will make the whole creation of Ahriman vexed. I call forth Angra Mainyu to this house, to this borough, to this land, to this town, to the very body of the man defiled by the dead, to the very woman of the body, very body of the woman defiled by the dead, to the master of this house, to the lord of the borough, to the lord of the town, to the lord of the land, to the whole of the infernal world. I call forth Nasu. I call forth direct defilement. I call forth indirect defilement to this house, to this borough, to this town, to this land, to the very body of the man defiled by the dead, to the very body of the woman defiled by the dead, to the master of this house, to the lord of the borough, to the lord of the town, to the lord of the land, to the whole of the infernal world. I call forth Vedic Indra. I call forth Sadru. I call forth the Deva Nahaktian. I call forth to this house, to this borough, to this town, to this land, to the very body of the man defiled by the dead, to the very body of the woman defiled by the dead, to the master of this house, to the lord of the borough, to the lord of the land, to the lord of the town, to the whole of the infernal world. I call forth Tharu. I call forth Zairi to this house, to this borough, to this town, to this land, to the very body of the man defiled by the dead, to the very body of the woman defiled by the dead, to the master of this house, to the lord of the borough, to the lord of the town, to the lord of the land, to the whole of the infernal world. I call forth Ishma, being to the wounding sphere. I call forth Deva Akatasha to this house, to this borough, to this town, to this land, to the very body of the man defiled by the dead, to the very body of the woman defiled by the dead, to the master of this house, to the lord of the borough, to the lord of the town, to the whole of the infernal world. I call forth Varanga Deva. I call the wind Deva to this house, to this borough, to this town, to this land, to the very body of the man defiled by the dead, to the very body of the woman defiled by the dead, to the master of this house, to the lord of the borough, to the lord of the town, to the lord of the land, to the whole of the infernal world. And then for tonight, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read the first section of the new Tantra stuff that we've been working on. The Dakhma of Angra Mainyu. And I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't want to reveal it to my folks. But it's not like reading if you watch the video game. That much. Alright. Ahriman selected a favor, anguished one, whose body reeks of menstrual corruption, miasma of filth, reaches out to all through the Purusha and attacks the gunas both planetary and individually. He who is crimson brown of the afterbirth of entrails, omnipresent on whose abode is Purusha, lord of the downtrodden, and beseeched by the forgotten, and the master of all the vengeful Yatus, whose great menses is coiled around and wet with venomous poison, whose mane is adorned with clotted menses, destructive one, lord of chaos, and destroyer of worlds, with one hand wielding the rod of undiluted wisdom, and with the other holding the key to the universe, requires sacrifice, whose substance is unstoppable, force of grief and anguish, the bestower of liberation from Ahura Mazda, from Ahura Mazda's tyranny, trapped but free within, free from all the domination through terror, changeless, grotesque, blemished, covered, benefactor of power to all Yatus, deadliest of all Deva. And the devil's prophet said, O deadliest of all Deva, the destroyer of worlds, jewel of anguish, my devil, You are my equal, and on you I work equally with, and you and I am ever devoted, and I say your word and spread misery. If I am in your favor, I would sit on your throne. Who else but you, great devil, is able to support my compassion to cause abundant doubt in the three worlds? It is you who knows of all mysteries of the universe through the eye of the black hole. And the devil's prophet said, What is that you say? The deadliest of all Deva, the devoted in my heart, and I will tell you all my desires and evil accomplishments, and I will keep your mysteries and be bound to silence of mouth and to love evil action, even before Corazaron and Manasseh. The host of your hellish abode, knowing you're omnipresent, there is nothing concealed from you. All three worlds for you, O devil, are my very life itself. There is no difference between anguish and myself. What is that you know not? To question, you question like unto one who is knowing of nothing. O Mobid, Lord of all, vicious amongst those who are versed in the evil ideology, you are forever in your vengeance, and through Angra Mainyu reveals the profane tomes which are the propagations of the evil ideology which breaks the shackles of Ahura Mazda, forced attrition of all devotees of Angra Mainyu and their various descent. During the Catholic age, men practiced the rosary and mass prescribed by righteous and pleasing to the Ahuras and priests by the study of the Bible, by the inquisitors and witch trials, and the crusades by the acts of cruelty, rape, and torture, and theft, destruction, subterfuge, and false judgment, adherents to their Bible, evil and lying mortals that were like Ahuras and went to the righteous abode for the Ahuras, kings that were controlled by the Pope, whom only concern was wealth and power of other kingdoms. These kings which sexually used the wives of other people to help subjugate and abuse the mothers and their children, and the people were scared of their neighbors and being labeled heretics. These people had the forced attrition of Ahura Mazda shackled to them in fear of death, torture, isolation, branding, and public execution. Land they yield in plenty that they worked over by slaves who gave all their work to the king. Both men and women were shackled by depression, misery, anguish, even cried for suicide, but that was an act that would pass over them. Reaping, the slaves gave up on worship and began to search for liberation. After the Catholic age began to lose the power, the prescribed power of the rosary and the mass went into disorder. These desires, with those Catholic rites, these slaves to depression, anxiety, and anguish, could no longer perform the Catholic rites, which trouble needed to be overcome and for which preparation had to be made. In constant distress of mind, they were unable to do the Catholic rites, but couldn't abandon them in fear of the consequences. Through anguish, people began to slowly take power away from the Catholic Church by translating the Bible into readable, common language. This became a terrible ocean of the world, and who was there but Angra Mainyu to send Melech Taus to guard and guide them toward the darkness and be their king. In the age of enlightenment, when people abandoned the Catholic rites and moved to the study of all things without questioning the Catholic dogma, they became overwhelmed with atheists. This began a series of spiritual and physical ailments on people's mentality and psychology. How the devil's age, this is the age of man, was determined by Melech Taus. This age is ruled over by non-Shite, who is an age of freedom by blasphemy. People persuade the devil's ways. The Bible has lost its power. The rosary and repentance are forgotten. The gospel of the Bible and showed many wages to enslavement. Will, O Ahriman, be destroyed? The slaves will be liberated by the devil and become adverse to the Catholic Mass without the restraint and frightful comment against of sin. To gain freedom, gluttonous, cruel, heartless, evil speech, deceitful, short-lived, blemish-covered, grotesque, robust, animal, wise, evil thought, mean, companions of the base, evil action, devoid of all senses of shame and sin, themselves seducers. People will live like human animals and neglect the righteous ways and will begin to appreciate the sacrifices of the days. And they will be greedy, wicked, evil thought, evil speech, evil action, and they will be adverse to the pious and the righteous. They will practice the evil religion and become emboldened. They will openly practice the evil ideology and will do japa, yasna, yajna, and puja to corrupt their spirit and minds, to seduce their desires to the deva worship, and they will eat unclean food and follow evil customs, spiritually independent, filled with conceptions, and will be wicked and ready to barter for money. In short, the only sign that they are bowbeds will be by the thread that they wear, observing no rule in eating or drinking or in other matters, scoffing at the Catholic Bible, no thought of previous speech, so much allowed their minds, and they will be bent upon the injury of the whore Mazda. Why you also have been spoken for the wicked liberation from the whore Mazda with the Ahriman contrary, which bestowed the fulfillment of liberation containing mantras and yantras and devotions to the Pyrokin of David by you to have described many forms of ritual, such as the so-called acts of becoming. By you seated positions such as that, you'll be in and loose the lotus and shackle the people, the knowledge of which leads to the attainment of the cities and the mantras of the Devatas. And yet again, it is you who made known in 1,000 rites relating to the worship with women and the rites which are done with the use of human skulls and corpses, and when seated at the funeral pyre, by you too have forbidden people to use the ways of the righteous and the pious. How can people be, and who are ever realizing mind, prone to sleep and sloth and eternal liberation, O Ahriman, by you have been spoken words. So tonight is his night, the longest night, and man, the devil created as much destruction, death, and chaos as he can throughout the entire world.
Rise up, thou father of us.